Have you ever felt like you are not the one making your own choices anymore? It doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps in slowly, a small habit, a quick escape. Something that once felt harmless starts becoming necessary. You tell yourself you're in control, you say you can stop anytime. But when the moment comes, you don't stop, you repeat it. Again and again, and deep inside you feel it, something is off. It's not just the habit, it's what it's doing to you. Every time you give in, a quiet voice inside you gets weaker. The part of you that wants more, the part that knows you're capable of something greater, that voice doesn't disappear, but it fades, and in its place something else grows, a pattern, a loop. A system that runs without asking your permission. This is where most people misunderstand addiction. They think it's about weakness. They think it's about lack of discipline. But that's not the truth. The truth is more powerful than that. Your brain has learned something. It has been trained to associate certain feelings with relief. Stress, boredom, loneliness, pressure. Your mind links these emotions to one quick action that gives you comfort, even if that comfort destroys you later. That's why it feels automatic, because it is. A trigger appears, a craving rises, you act, you feel relief, and your brain locks that pattern deeper. Not because it wants to hurt you, but because it wants to protect you in the fastest way it knows how. And the more you repeat it, the stronger it becomes. Like a path in your mind that turns into a highway. But here is where everything changes. The moment you start seeing this pattern clearly, you are no longer fully controlled by it. Right now, as you listen, something inside you is waking up. Awareness. And awareness is power, because once you can see the loop, you can interrupt it. Once you understand what's happening, you are no longer blind to it. And when you are not blind, you have a choice. That choice may feel small at first, almost invisible, but it is everything. You are not broken, you are not weak. You are conditioned, and conditioning can be reversed. That means no matter how deep this habit feels, no matter how long it has been controlling you, there is a way out. Not through shame, not through guilt, but through understanding and deliberate change. And if you stay with this, if you don't run from this truth, something powerful will begin to happen. You will start to separate who you are from what you do. You will realize that the urge is not you. The habit is not you. It is something you learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. By the end of this journey, you won't just feel motivated. You will feel different, stronger, clearer, more in control than you have felt in a long time, because this is not about fighting yourself. This is about taking yourself back, and it starts with one realization: you don't need more willpower. You need to become someone new. Because the truth is, as long as you keep trying to change your actions without changing who you believe you are, you will keep falling back into the same cycle. You say, "I will stop," but inside you still see yourself as someone who needs it, someone who depends on it, someone who struggles with it, and your brain always chooses consistency over intention. It will pull you back to what feels familiar, even if it is destroying you. This is why most people feel stuck. Not because they don't try, but because they try from the same identity that created the problem. They are fighting from the inside of the cage, not realizing the door is already unlocked. There is a philosophy that cuts through this illusion completely. Kishi Kaisei. It means to wake from death and return to life, not improve, not adjust, rebirth. This is where everything becomes uncomfortable, but also where everything becomes possible. Because this kind of change asks you to let go of the version of yourself that you have been holding onto. The one who escapes when things get hard, the one who seeks comfort instead of growth, the one who negotiates with weakness and calls it normal. You don't slowly fix that version, you outgrow it. And that starts with a decision that most people avoid, a clean break, a clear line, no more just one more time, no more I'll stop tomorrow. Those thoughts belong to the old identity. And if you keep listening to them, you keep feeding that identity. Instead, you shift your internal language. You stop saying, "I'm trying to quit." You start saying, "I don't do that anymore." Not because it's easy, but because it's final. Your brain responds differently to certainty than it does to negotiation. When you leave room for exceptions, you weaken your own authority. But when you make a decision that feels absolute, your mind begins to reorganize around it. This is how identity rewiring begins. Every action you take is a vote for who you believe you are. Every time you resist, you are casting a vote for strength. Every time you give in, you are reinforcing the old version of yourself. And over time, those votes become your reality. So the question is not, can I stop this habit? The real question is, who am I becoming right now? Because once you fully step into a new identity, the behavior starts to follow. Not perfectly, not instantly, but inevitably. You begin to act in alignment with who you see yourself as. This is why transformation feels extreme, because it is. You are not just removing a habit. You are replacing a version of yourself that no longer serves you. And yes, there will be resistance. Your mind will try to pull you back. It will whisper familiar excuses. It will remind you of comfort. But those are echoes of a version of you that is already fading. You don't need to argue with those thoughts. You don't need to fight them. You simply stop identifying with them, because the moment you truly decide that you are no longer that person, something shifts. The control starts to loosen. The urge loses some of its grip. Not because it disappeared, but because you changed your relationship with it. And once that shift begins, you are no longer trying to escape the addiction. You are stepping into a life where it no longer belongs. And the moment you step into that new identity, something very specific begins to happen inside your mind. You start to notice the pattern instead of becoming it. What once felt automatic now becomes visible. What once controlled you now reveals itself in slow motion. You begin to see the trigger before the action. You feel the craving before the habit takes over. And in that small gap, that tiny window of awareness, your power lives. Because addiction does not control you in one big moment. It controls you in small, repeated loops. A feeling appears, your mind reacts, your body follows, relief comes, and the loop closes. Over and over again until it feels permanent. But it is not permanent, it is practiced, and anything practiced can be unlearned. Most people try to break the loop at the final step. They try to stop the action while everything inside them is already pushing toward it. That is why it feels impossible. You are trying to stop a moving train at full speed. Real control happens earlier. It happens when the feeling first appears. The moment you feel that pull, don't rush to escape it. Don't label it as something you must obey. Just notice it. Name it. This is the urge, not this is me. That one shift creates separation, and separation weakens control. You are no longer inside the craving, you are observing it. And when you observe something, you can choose how to respond. This is where you interrupt the loop. You pause, even if it's just for a few seconds. That pause may feel small, but it is powerful. It breaks the automatic chain. It reminds your brain that you are not a machine running on habit. You are a conscious being capable of choice. Then you redirect. Not by doing nothing, but by doing something intentional. Movement, breath, cold water, a change in environment. You are not ignoring the urge. You are teaching your brain a new response to it. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will resist. It will try to pull you back into the familiar pattern. That is expected. That resistance is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that the old pathway is being challenged. And every time you choose differently, you weaken that old pathway. This is how your brain rewires itself. Not through one big decision, but through repeated small victories. Each time you interrupt the loop, you are carving a new path, a stronger path. A path that leads away from dependence and toward control. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent, because consistency builds momentum, and momentum changes identity. Slowly, the intensity of the craving begins to drop. Not because life becomes easier, but because your response becomes stronger. What once felt overwhelming starts to feel manageable. What once controlled you starts to lose its authority, and then you realize something powerful. The urge was never the problem, the automatic response was. And now that response is no longer automatic. Now it is a choice. And when something becomes a choice, it stops owning you, it starts revealing you. Because now every moment of discomfort becomes a test of who you are deciding to be. Not someday, not in theory, right now, in real time. When the urge rises, when the pressure builds, when your mind whispers the same old excuse, that is the moment your identity is being shaped. Most people still try to escape that moment. They try to distract themselves, numb themselves, silence the feeling as quickly as possible. But that is the old pattern, just wearing a different face. Real strength is built in a different way. You stay with the discomfort without reacting to it. You allow the urge to exist without obeying it. You feel it fully without turning it into action. And in doing that, you begin to understand something that changes everything. Urges are temporary. They feel intense, but they are not permanent. They rise like a wave, they peak, and then they fall. Always, but in the past, you never gave them the chance to fall. You acted at the peak, and your brain learned that the only way to survive that feeling was to escape it. Now you are teaching it something new. You are showing your mind that you can experience discomfort and still remain in control, that you can feel pressure and not collapse under it, that you can sit in the fire and not burn. This is where real confidence is born, not from success, not from motivation, but from proof. Proof that you can face yourself in your most vulnerable moments and still choose strength. Every time you do this, something inside you solidifies, a quiet certainty, a deep trust. You begin to trust your own decisions again, and that trust changes everything. Because when you trust yourself, you no longer need constant motivation. You no longer rely on temporary feelings to guide you. You act from a place of stability, not impulse. At the same time, you make your environment work for you, not against you. You remove easy access to the habit. You create distance between you and the trigger. You understand that willpower alone is not enough, so you reduce the number of decisions you have to fight. Because every barrier you add makes it easier to stay aligned with your new identity. And while you remove what weakens you, you begin to build what strengthens you. New routines, new habits. New ways to release stress, to find focus, to feel alive without needing escape. This is important, because you are not designed to live in emptiness. If you only remove the addiction without replacing it, your mind will search for something else to fill that space. So you fill it with intention, with growth, with movement, with discipline, with purpose, and slowly, without even realizing it at first, your days start to feel different. Your energy shifts, your mind becomes clearer, your reactions become calmer. The chaos that once controlled you begins to fade, not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. And that strength is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is quiet, steady, unshakable. It shows up when the urge hits and you don't move. It shows up when the pressure builds and you stay in control. It shows up when your old self calls you back and you don't answer. And when you stop answering that old call, something deeper begins to shift within you. Not just your behavior, not just your reactions, but your entire sense of self starts to transform. You are no longer fighting the addiction. You are outgrowing it. At first, the change feels subtle, almost invisible. The urges still come, but they feel weaker, less convincing. What once felt like a command now feels like a suggestion. And for the first time, you see it clearly for what it is, just a passing signal, not a controlling force. This is where most people make a mistake. They think the battle is over too early. They relax. They assume they are free, but true transformation is not a moment. It is a process, a continuous decision to remain aligned with the person you have chosen to become. Because life will test you again. There will be days when stress returns stronger than before, moments when loneliness hits deeper, situations where your old habits seem like the easiest escape. And in those moments, the old version of you will try one last time to come back. But now you are not the same person. Now you recognize the pattern before it pulls you in. You feel the urge without losing yourself in it. You understand that this is not a step backward, but an opportunity to reinforce who you have become. Every test is a chance to strengthen your identity. Every urge is a reminder of how far you've come. And every time you choose control over comfort, you move further away from the person you used to be. There is a quiet power in that realization. A deep sense of freedom that cannot be explained, only experienced. You are no longer reacting to life. You are responding to it with awareness, with intention, with strength. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. This transformation is not for validation. It is for you, for your peace, for your clarity, for your ability to live without chains. And slowly, something remarkable happens. The thing that once controlled your thoughts starts to disappear from your mind. Not completely, but enough that it no longer defines you. It becomes a distant memory, a reminder of a past version of yourself that you have outgrown. You begin to feel lighter. Not because life is easier, but because you are no longer carrying the weight of that dependency. Your mind has space again, space to think clearly, to focus, to create, to grow. This is what real freedom feels like. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of control. You realize that you don't need escape anymore. You don't need that habit to feel okay. You have built something stronger inside you, something stable, something reliable, and that changes the way you see everything. Because now when challenges come, you don't look for ways to avoid them. You face them, you move through them, you grow from them. This is the essence of Kishi Kaisei, a complete rebirth. Not into someone perfect, but into someone aware, someone disciplined, someone who chooses growth over comfort again and again. And when you look back, you won't just see that you broke an addiction. You will see that you rebuilt your entire life from the inside out. And when you rebuild your life from the inside out, you begin to notice something that once felt impossible. You are no longer constantly fighting yourself. The noise inside your mind starts to quiet down, the internal conflict fades, and in its place there is clarity. You wake up with a different kind of energy, not the temporary rush that comes from escaping, but a steady, grounded strength. You are no longer chasing relief, you are creating stability. And that stability changes the way you move through the world. You start making decisions that align with who you've become, not who you used to be. You don't hesitate as much. You don't negotiate with weakness. You don't look for shortcuts that lead you back into the same cycle. Because now you see the truth behind those patterns. They were never solutions. They were delays, and you are done delaying your life. There is a powerful shift that happens when you fully accept this. You stop asking, will I fall back? And you start saying, that is not who I am anymore. Not as motivation, but as fact, as identity, as something that feels real in your bones. This is where the transformation becomes permanent, not because you are forcing yourself, but because the desire itself begins to change. What once pulled you in now feels out of place. What once felt comforting now feels limiting. You begin to outgrow it emotionally, mentally, and even physically, and that is freedom on a deeper level. Because when your desires change, your struggle decreases. But you remain aware, you don't become careless. You understand that growth requires maintenance, not fear but awareness. Not tension but presence. You stay conscious of your patterns. You stay connected to your purpose. You continue choosing actions that reinforce your new identity even when no one is watching. Because this is no longer about breaking something. It is about protecting what you've built. You've built discipline. You've built self-respect. You've built a version of yourself that does not collapse under pressure, and that is worth guarding. There will still be moments when life feels heavy, days when your energy drops. Times when the old path looks easy again. But now you have something stronger than temptation. You have proof that you can resist, proof that you can change. Proof that you are not controlled by your impulses. And that proof becomes your foundation. You don't rely on motivation anymore. You rely on who you are. And that is unshakable. This is the final shift, the moment where you stop seeing yourself as someone who escaped addiction and start seeing yourself as someone who has evolved beyond it. You don't carry the label. You don't carry the struggle, you carry the strength that came from overcoming it, and that strength begins to affect every part of your life. Your focus sharpens, your discipline expands. Your confidence deepens. You start setting higher standards, not just for your habits, but for your entire life. Because once you take control of yourself, everything else becomes possible. This is Kishi Kaisei, not just a change, but a rebirth. Not just breaking a habit, but becoming someone unrecognizable to your past. And when the next challenge comes, as it always will, you won't look for an escape. You will stand your ground, because you are no longer the person who runs. You are the person who rises.